I'm Ernest Sotomayor. I am the Dean of Student Affairs, and I want to welcome you to New York City, for those of you who are not from here, to Columbia University, and to the Graduate School of Journalism on a really beautiful fall, chilly, crisp day in this beautiful, newly renovated room, which we call the World Room. If we did not have these banners here, you would see a beautiful stained glass window, which had been in the Pulitzer newspaper of the world, the New York World, down in lower Manhattan. And it was rescued as they were preparing to destroy the building, and we brought it up here. And it signifies Pulitzer's vision about the world. And you'd see a pedestal where the Statue of Liberty was eventually placed. Which is why we call it the World, and you'll understand as we talk and you hear more about our programs why this significance is really plays into all of our programs. Thank you for being here today and for making the time to be here from wherever you came. We know some of you came from very far away, and we have a lot of people on our live broadcast that's on the web in lots of different parts of the world, so we really are glad that you were able to join us for the session this morning. Today is going to provide a lot of information to you about our programs, what you want to know about our school. And it also should be a day when you are asking the same kinds of questions you are often asking in pursuit of stories and news. Those of you who are established journalists will understand this, and those of you who are not will want to begin this moment to pursue that task of finding out information, particularly about what the school is and what it means and whether it'll be the right fit for you. Kinds of questions you will want to ask is who we are at Columbia, what's our curriculum all about, how do we structure it, what do we teach and why, and what are the courses available to you, and what you should take when you get here, and where you want to be when you finish. When is the best time to come? Where might you go after Columbia? Where are you going to land? Why we think you should attend. And to begin asking these questions, you will need to ask lots of questions of yourself, such as why you feel you want to come to Columbia or to attend a journalism school, what you want to get from us, what you want to do as a journalist, and what you feel are the kinds of stories and the kind of news you want to report and to write, when you feel is the right time to attend, and whether this is the right place for you. Some of the process, you're going to want to ask who you are and what you really are all about. You will want to answer, what you will want an answer to is why. It's always the most important question just about. Anyone would ever want to attend a journalism school, and for us it means acquiring the capacity to use the vast array of tools that are available out there to gather data and other forms of information, lots of forms of information, to understand what it means, use it competently, determine how to tell a story, and put it in a form that is going to give value to the readers. That's a process that's more complex than ever before. You need to be a student of this industry and our profession and understand the profound changes that we're going through right now. We see this as a profession in the pursuit of public service, and that's done in many, many ways. Whether you are an investigative reporter here or abroad, whether you're writing about opera or sports or covering education, or you're covering conflict and wars in danger zones, you need to understand the profound changes in how news is consumed, how readers are looking for information, and how we're delivering it, and how to reach and engage those readers. You need to see that among the main drivers of change has been the technology. We want you to learn how to use that in pursuit of stories. You're going to hear that phrase a lot, storytelling, pursuit of information for writing and creating better stories. It's not just about learning the tools, not just about learning how to work a camera or record video or audio, but it's how to use it to tell stories. You'll hear that over and over. It will sound like a broken record because that's the intent. Really, to be able to provide all of this, we have 6 pillars upon which we place our program on our education. First is investigative reporting, because it's so important to go out and find that information, to reveal information that people don't want us to know. We have the Stabile Investigative Program that you can apply to, which trains 15 to 16 students every year, very intensely in investigative reporting. But even if you're not in that program, you will have a lot of opportunity, whether you're in the MS program or the Master of Arts program or in the PhD program, to learn techniques to gather information and do the best kinds of stories. And our students, when they graduate from that program, go to some of the best companies in the world: Wall Street Journal, New York Times, ProPublica, Slate. They've gone to Rolling Stone and other places. Data and computational journalism is becoming more and more important every day, more so as there are massive amounts of information available in different forms. We want you to learn to use the tools that are available to find that information, to analyze it, to clean it, understand what it means, and make it understandable to the readers in a way you can visualize it. But there are tools that don't exist for some of the ways that data will become available. And through the different programs we have, we want you to become the tool makers. You'll hear more about that from Mark Hansen in a few minutes. We've hired one of the foremost data investigative reporters and educators in the world, Giannina Signini, who's here helping us to formulate how in the future we'll deliver this kind of education. We're launching next fall, and you'll be able to apply to this. A 2-semester data and computational journalism concentration where you'll learn a lot more in this area. We offer a dual degree in computational science and journalism, so people with a very strong background in computer science and engineering can come and learn even more advanced techniques, programming, again in the pursuit of journalism. The Tao Center for Digital Journalism and the Brown Institute for Media Innovation are based in this building, and they're doing great things, doing research in the digital space, teaching people how to develop the tools, holding conferences, workshops. We've had probably 3 or 4 this week in each of those centers. So those are accessible to students. International journalism is another pillar for us. 40% of our students this year are from abroad. They bring a rich experience, just a great value to our school. Their perspectives are things that we just want to know about. And you sit next to students from virtually every continent in the world, and they become part of the educational process for us. Broadcast and video. Being a broadcast journalism has been completely redefined from what it was 15, 20 years ago. And we want you to learn the different ways that people are delivering, finding news in the broadcast video digital space. To work at a traditional broadcast network television station, or at a newspaper, at a magazine, pure play digital place, or a radio station. They all have digital information that they're delivering in many ways. And we believe that freedom of expression is extremely important. We have the belief that this is a foundational right around the world, and we are constantly promoting that idea. We are concluding a year-long series that we've called After Snowden, which has looked at the impact of free access to information. We'll continue that effort into the years to come in lots of different ways, and it becomes a core of what this program is all about. We understand that pursuing an education here is a costly endeavor. So we've redoubled efforts to generate more scholarship support for anyone who's looking to attend here. So that's also a very important priority for us. You're about to hear a lot more about our programs. You'll hear from our faculty members who can answer your questions that you have about curriculum. You'll hear from our students and alumni. You'll hear from our administrators about the application process and financial aid and applications and so forth. And we want you to ask those questions. For those of you who are watching on our live stream, you can participate in this session also by logging into your Twitter accounts. We are using the hashtag CJS chat, and our handle is CJS admissions. So you can follow our questions and answers. We have someone who's going to be looking for the questions and putting answers up. This broadcast also will be archived, so if you missed any part of it or want to go back and hear, or you have other colleagues you want to share the information with, you can direct them to that. I'm going to turn this program over to the people who will be able to answer your many questions, so please keep formulating those questions and prepare to answer them. the moment, I'd like to bring up Andy Tucker, who is director of our PhD program, who will talk to you for a few moments about our PhD program and whisk you away for an informational session on that. Again, thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in our school. Andy?
Good morning. I'm just going to take a few minutes here to make sure that you're going to come to the right session. I'm going to take the PhD prospective candidates away to a different room because the program is very different. It has different admission standards. It has a different curriculum. Everything about it is so different that it makes sense to carry you off and talk to you separately. But so that you understand that you make the right decision about which group to come to, and also so that we don't look like some sort of secret cabal, I just want to tell you for a moment a little bit about the PhD program. It's a PhD in communications. It's not super duper advanced journalism. It's not about journalistic techniques or tactics at all. It's an interdisciplinary, scholarly program that explores the historical, economic, political, social, cultural aspects of the creation and exchange of information in a society. Students in our program create an individual course of study drawing on the graduate resources of the divisions of the university. They take courses from political science, from history, from international affairs, from law, from business. They usually take 5 to 7 years to complete the degree, which is standard for a PhD, but most of you who would come and get an MS will be long gone and working since then. So are there people here interested in the PhD? Would you raise your hands? Okay, great. Will you follow me, please? We'll go upstairs and talk about that program, and I'll leave the rest to thank you.
And for those of you who are listening also online, that program, the PhD discussion, will be broadcast as well and also archived so that if you're not able to be here, you'll be able to listen to it at some other time or at a time that's more convenient to you. My name is Christine Souders. I'm the Associate Dean for Admission and Financial Aid. I would also like to extend my welcome to all of you who have come in person, to all of you who are listening on the live stream, and to all of you who are participating in the live stream chat and in the live stream or on the Twitter feed. We're delighted that all of you are here and hope that we'll be able to provide a lot of good information for you. Please feel free to ask questions in person, on the Twitter chat, on the live stream. We've got people running all of those, and we're, as Dean Sotomayor indicated, very happy to answer your questions and look forward to hearing from you. Before we move to the faculty panel, I would like to introduce a couple of other people who are here in the room. One is Edwin Isaac, who is in the back of the room. He is our Assistant Director for Financial Aid and Admissions. You'll be hearing from him very shortly. And I think that's it. So if I could invite the faculty to come up and join us. And I'd like to thank our faculty panel very much for joining us here on a Saturday morning. We're delighted that you were able to come here. And I'm just going to do some quick introductions, and then the faculty will go on and talk about the different programs that we have here, and you will be able to ask questions. I'm going to start at the far end. Elena Cabral, who is the director of the part-time program here at the school. You'll also be hearing from students in the part-time program. Welcome, Elena. Mark Hansen, the director of the Brown Institute, and one of our data and media innovators. You'll be hearing a lot from him. Marguerite Holloway, who is the director of the science journalism program here. Marguerite is also the head of the MA Science program. She'll be discussing the MA programs with you. And Betsy West, a professor who works with all of our video and broadcast students. She is also this year the interim head of the documentary film program. So I will let you all take it away. Elena, if you would like to start.
Sure. As Dean Souders pointed out, I am the director of the part-time program. I'm also a graduate of the part-time program. I graduated in 1999 and I went to work for the Miami Herald. I came back, my feeling about Columbia is that you gravitate back. It just pulls you back because it's just such an exciting place here, and the faculty are just wonderful people and have been mentors to me for going on 15 years. And so when I came back, I started teaching here with my old RW1 professor. Sam Friedman is still here, and he teaches a wonderful class called the Book Writing Seminar. Just yesterday at 8 o'clock in the morning, he packed the room downstairs with folks. I think everyone has a book that, that they've been thinking about, and so that class was just already shaping up. And so I taught with him, and I've taught many classes here at the journalism school. I started directing the part-time program about partway through, and I also work as one of the counselors in the career service office. So I help students get their resumes together. We organize a lot of talks here with recruiters, with editors, with alums who have gone on to work in every different platform. And I also advise one of many affinity groups at the journalism school. This one is a chapter of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, and they do a lot of work all year long. And I curate the Columbia Journalist, which is our showcase for student work, also in every different platform. I'm really excited to be here in this admission cycle because we're introducing a really exciting data specialization in the part-time program. So if any of you are thinking about the part-time program, it would be great for you to ask us and ask Professor Hansen about how the curriculum would be designed around this data specialization, really because this is such an exciting field. When we talk to recruiters about, our students who are focusing in data and computational journalism, their eyes get big and they get really excited about it because this is such a huge and exciting field. And I feel that the program will be designed to give students the skills they need, the tools they need to be really competitive in this new environment of journalism. So we're happy to talk about that.
My name is Mark. I head something called the Brown Institute here. It was created 2.5 years ago. It was an endowment from Helen Gurley Brown, who was the editor of Cosmopolitan magazine for 35 years, which by itself is kind of awesome. It's located downstairs on the ground floor, just on the other side. The Institute is half located here at Columbia Journalism and half at Stanford Engineering, and it's about commingling or co-evolving story and technology. So in some cases, we're building platforms and systems for finding and telling stories, and in other cases, we're developing new technology to tell a story that couldn't be told in any other way. The curricular mission of the Brown Institute here is to help put forward things like the specialization that Elena mentioned in data journalism. We also have formed something called the LEAD program, which is a post-bac program that takes you from having no digital anything to the sort of like, oh, don't please make it stop to being dangerous, right? To getting to a place where you can actually do something quite serious. In the program, I teach classes mostly related to data. We have a series of, I think maybe Christine will mention the structure of the program at some point, but we have a series of offerings that you can take, Photo 1, Photo 2, Video 1, Video 2. Now there's a Data 1, Data 2. And I teach the Data 2 class, which is sort of an advanced working with data. For those of you who had a statistics class and actually thought it was kind of awesome, this is the class that you would go into to sort of to further hone those skills. And I should be careful. It's not about statistics. We're not teaching you statistics per se. We're teaching you about pulling stories from data, how you find stories in data. So there's a fundamental tie between narrative and data in a way that a statistics class just doesn't do it. Let's see. And then we have, as Elena said, a specialization, a master's specialization in data journalism coming up, where you are learning sort of the basics of how to think about data. You don't really have to have any background in it whatsoever, but how to think about data as a source, right? So not a human source that you talk to in a sort of interview style, but as a source, as a kind of inspiration, a source of inspiration for moving your story along. And this isn't new. Pulitzer wrote about this in 1904 in his essay on the College of Journalism, and one of the things he thought should be taught was statistics, but I think actually he meant data. He just didn't really call it that. In that, statistics hadn't really been formalized, or the way people were thinking about statistics in 1904 and the way they think about it now is it's more like data anyway. But he wrote that in statistics you can find not only the truth, right, not only sort of support for righteous investigative work, but also human interest, humor, right, that data is a source. It produces stories about who we are and how we live in a really rich way, and that's what the data concentration and the data classes that we offer here are all about.
I'm Marguerite Holloway.
If you could speak into the mic a little bit.
Speak into the mic a little bit.
Hi. I'm Marguerite Holloway. I teach in both the MS and the MA program, and I think I'm going to talk mostly today about the MA program. But I, too, like Elena, am a graduate of the school. I graduated in 1988, and I spent most of my career working at Scientific American, sort of writing about science in a magazine format. And I guess 9 years ago, next year is going to be the 10th year of the MA program, the school formed this new degree so that experienced journalists had an opportunity to come back and to go deep into a subject area that they were interested in. So there are 4 different concentrations. There's government and politics, business and economics, arts and culture, and science and health. And I teach in the science and health specialization with my colleague Jonathan Wiener. We usually split the year, which is centered around a seminar, which is co-taught by scientists. And that is the model that is consistent across all the different disciplines. The class is co-taught by experts in that field, so you really have an opportunity to go in very deep. And you take courses, graduate level courses around the university in the area that you're interested in. It is not specifically just a long-form program, but we have a very, very strong emphasis on narrative and on trying to write long-form. We have a thesis project with just 10,000 words, which is due at the end of the year and is something you work on across the whole year. You can do it in different forms, but again, sort of so far, most of the projects have been narratives and long-form narratives. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to ask questions too. Actually, I would like to ask a question. How many of you are interested in the MA program? Okay, great. So if you have specific questions, I can talk very specifically about the structure, less specifically about the 3 other seminars, although I know a lot about them and can probably answer your questions. And if you have any questions about the MS science classes, I teach a science reporting class and an environmental reporting class. I'd be very happy to answer questions about that as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Betsy West, and I teach, as Christine said, in the MS program, and I teach video. I came here, I think, 8 years ago after a career mainly in network television news. I worked for ABC News for a number of years, and then I was an executive at CBS News, where I oversaw 60 Minutes and other long-form programs, and I've also produced documentaries. As she said, I'm now this year running the documentary program, which is normally run by June Cross, the wonderful documentary producer who started it about 7 years ago. But talking about the MS program, what happened several years ago is that we realized that the concentrations that we had in the MS were kind of anachronistic and that the lines were blurring, so that it wasn't just magazine journalism or broadcast journalism, but that everything was commingling, and that what was happening in the world out there was an expectation that you could have an experience and expertise or at least familiarity in all of these areas. So we've made that easier, I think, with our new MS curriculum. I teach video, and I think now we have well over half, just about half the school are taking video courses now. Some people are doing it just because they want the experience and they've never done it before, and let's just see how this works out, because if they go to work for a newspaper and their editor said, here's a camera, go shoot while you're covering this story, they'll be able to do that. And other people are very serious about video. I've certainly found that in the 7 years that I've taught here, the level of experience of my own students has really ratcheted up, and we have students who come in here who do have a lot of experience in video, and we work with them more, to hone those skills and to improve their reporting and storytelling skills, so that they are really finding the great stories to tell and doing it in a really effective way. Is there anyone here just interested in the documentary program? Yeah. So briefly, the documentary program is usually somewhere from, 15 to 18 students who come in and doing the MS curriculum, but opting for an extra semester, either in the summer or in the fall of that year. And throughout the year, doing special, a seminar, a long seminar on documentary, and work developing a documentary project, ultimately also being assigned one-on-one an advisor, often somebody who is a documentarian, either on the faculty or in the outside world. I mean, this is the other thing that's so great about Columbia. As an aside, it's true about the documentary program, but in general, we're in New York City. There are a lot of fantastic journalists here, and it's amazing how many of them want to be involved in Columbia Journalism School. They come up here to give workshops, or they work as adjuncts, or they volunteer to be your advisor on your master's project or on your documentary, which is very exciting. In terms of the documentary, right now, next week, a documentary that went through this program last year is having its world premiere at the Doc NYC Film Festival, which is fantastic. We're all very excited. It's called Hardy, about a young woman who is a boxer. And so all of us are going to go traipse down there and see the premiere of Natasha Verma's wonderful documentary. So that's very exciting. We have a group of students who are finishing up their documentaries, will be graduating in December, and then a new group coming in and coming up with fantastic ideas for short films. I mean, we encourage them to do usually half an hour. Many of them do wind up, either on PBS or in festivals or in other areas, or, sometimes it's a learning experience. You do that first half-hour documentary, and then you figure out how to do it and move on into the world. So that's the documentary program.
Great. I want to mention also that you've heard people talk about the MS, or the Master of Science, also the Master of Arts. And the MS program is really designed for students who are at the beginning of their career in journalism. It is a multimedia journalism program designed to teach you all of the skills that you need as a good journalist. So you will learn reporting, you will learn journalistic writing, you will learn video and audio, you will learn how to use data, as Mark mentioned. You will also have the opportunity to take a look at ethics, at First Amendment issues, free speech issues, at issues in the business of journalism. You also learn to use social media as a journalist. So you're learning all of the tools that you need as a journalist, in addition to developing a first-rate network of colleagues among your students, also among the faculty that you study with. And it's a program also for people who may be already writers, who may be print journalists, but who want to gain additional skills in video and audio or in data. We also have a program in investigative journalism. And so the three sort of specialization areas that we have in the Master of Science program include investigative, documentary, and data. Each of them, we take about 15 students into each of those sections, and everybody else in the MS program is in our multimedia journalism program. The Stabile program for investigative journalism is run by Sheila Coronel, an investigative journalist from the Philippines, who is also our Dean for Academic Affairs. It's a great program for anybody who wants to study investigative. Students who don't want to focus perhaps on investigative but would like at least a course have the opportunity to study with wonderful investigative journalists like Walt Bogdanich from the New York Times. There are also individual data courses, data visualization courses that students can take even if they are not in the data concentration. And of course, there are many, many video courses that are available to students in the MS program. I also want to mention the dual degree program in computer science and journalism that we have with the engineering school here. That is a 2-year program, and I should say that the MS program is a 10-month program if you go full-time. It's 2 years if you go part-time. The dual degree program with the computer science department is a 2-year program for students who are interested in working at the intersection of computer science and journalism. Very exciting place to be, huge demand for graduates of the program in employment, a very, very exciting program. And I'm going to come back and ask Mark Hansen to speak a little bit more about that in just a minute. I also want to talk briefly about the MA. The MA is a 9-month full-time program. It is for experienced journalists, so journalists who have had full-time professional journalism jobs for the last 3 to 15 years. It assumes that the student already knows everything that we teach in the MS program and that they have gotten that knowledge either through their professional careers or from having done an MS program like ours or similar to ours. We also have dual degree programs here at Columbia with the School of International and Public Affairs, with the law school, the business school, with the religion department at the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and I feel like I'm leaving one out. Pardon?
We have the
Oh,
international.
there are also
programs,
2
yeah.
international dual degree programs, one with Sciences Po in Paris, the other with the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg in South Africa. These programs are all of varying lengths, generally 2 to 3 years, but also give very exciting possibilities for combining subject area knowledge with journalism. I'm going to go back now and ask Betsy to talk a little bit more about the structure of the MS program, the coursework, and then we'll just go down the line. Marguerite, if you would talk a little bit more then about the structure of the MA program, Mark about the dual degree with computer science, and Elena about the part-time program.
So the MS program starts in August, very aggressively in August, with a kind of digital boot camp that you do for 3 to, I think it's 4 weeks now, kind of getting you up to speed on photojournalism skills and audio skills and beginning your reporting class. That's kind of August. And then for 7 weeks, starting at the beginning of September, you are doing a very intense reporting class in sections of, about 15 students in a section. And you have 2 professors who are really taking you through the nuts and bolts of finding fantastic stories. They're very often beat related courses, so you might have a geographic beat, you might be assigned a beat in Queens or in Harlem, or sometimes there's subject matter beat. So one of the classes this year I know did transportation, and so everybody was doing stories about somehow related to transportation, or I think water has been a beat, and public housing has been a beat, and students are kind of carving out areas in that. The idea is to really get the foundation. I think this is what distinguishes Columbia. One of the things that distinguishes Columbia from other schools is our emphasis on reporting and learning how to find out the truth of what's going on, to get interesting stories, to find the facts, to use data to find the facts, to use your shoe leather to go out there in the beat and find the facts. So that's a 7-week course. And then at the same time, you're taking one of 4 Friday, what do we call them, the 4-pack courses, which are 7 weeks of, let's see, the business of journalism, the ethics of journalism, the history of journalism, and the law. And so these are 4 different courses, and over the course of the whole fall semester, divided into 2 7-week sections, you will take 2 of them in the first 7-week section on Fridays, so 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, and then after those 7 weeks, the next Friday, you're going to take the other 2, whichever 2 you didn't get. And that really, I think, gives you a strong grounding in many of the best practices of journalism and where things are headed, and how not to get into your trouble legally and all kinds of wonderful things. So that's happening on Fridays. So this first week session is focused on reporting. The second week section is where you begin to specialize and to kind of tailor your own program. There are 2 courses that you're going to take, and you get to pick from a number of choices in 2 different kind of pods. One is writing. Again, writing is the core here, very important, and there's a number of offerings within the writing pod, different kinds of writing that you can do, whether or not it's deadline or writing about sports or writing for radio. There are many choices in the writing, but it's a requirement in the second half of this fall semester that you take a writing course. And then the other is, what do we call it? Audio, visual, and
Image and sound.
Image and sound, right. So then that's where you get to take a video course, or what we used to call a radio course, an audio course. And then the other pod is you're going to tell me?
The social engagement.
Social engagement. Audience engagement, right. So that's many of the data courses that you would be able to take would be data visualization, and that's in the other pod, and you pick one of the 2 of those. In the spring, you are doing 2 seminar and production classes. They're 15 weeks long. So the spring is when you kind of spread your wings. Yeah, and so you might be taking a video storytelling class seminar, or you might be taking the book writing seminar. You have you're really now kind of getting deeper into the specialization that you developed in the fall, and you're also taking you're the last of your 7-week pods, either in the image and sound or the audience engagement kind of pod, and that's a 7-week. You are also, while you're doing all of that, doing a master's project, which is due in March after spring break, so that it can ensure that your spring break will be spent probably doing your master's project. Pretty much everybody in the MS program is doing that, with the exception of those who are in the documentary program, because they're staying the extra semester to do their documentary. That's their master's project. So they're working on it, but their deadline is not until either the end of August or the end of November. Everybody else is doing a master's project, which can either be a 5,000 word print piece, or it can be a hybrid piece with generally 2,500 words and a 6 or 8 minute video, or audio radio series. I mean, we have a kind of a different combinations of what your master's project can be. Did I get it all?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And we should also mention that also during that second semester and even in the first semester, you have the opportunity to choose coursework in political reporting, science reporting, arts and culture reporting, feature writing, profile writing. The list is very long. We've got it up on the website if you'd like to take a look at it, but it's an absolutely mouth-watering list, I have to say.
And the professors are just fantastic. We're talking about Pulitzer Prize winning, DuPont Award winning, I mean, just a fantastic array of professors that you can choose from. Do you want to take a question here, or do you want to? Yeah.
Let's hold the questions just for a couple more
Okay.
minutes until everybody speaks, and then we'll take questions.
All right, so the structure of the MA program, it's also a 10-month program. Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, Harry. The MA program is also a 10-month program, but the students don't come at the beginning of August, they come at the end of August. There isn't sort of the boot camp component, because again, as Christine was saying, we sort of feel that the students in the MA program are up to speed in some of the basics. But I'll get back to that in a minute, because there are some elements that we have started to weave into the MA program because of skills that experienced journalists want when they come back to school. But the core, as I said, there are 4 different sections, and the core of each one of those specializations is what's called the seminar. And it runs the entire year from the beginning of September till the middle of May. And that is the one that meets 2 times a week, that is taught by journalists, professor 1 session, and then by an expert the second session. And we often relate the work that we're doing in the journalism workshop that week to whatever has come out in the expert session. But sometimes they're sort of moving not in a completely integrated way, but by the end, everything does seem to come together. At the same time, you're taking an evidence and inference class, which is taught by our former dean, Nicholas Lemon. And that is a way of allowing you to think very much about how different fields approach evidence and how journalists should think through and be familiar with the different ways of considering the frame of their story, how they assess material, how other fields assess it, and what that could mean or shouldn't mean for journalism. And it's also the section in which there is a basic crash course in statistics, because it became very, very clear that even if people had had a statistics class in their past, it had been many years since they had sort of engaged with that, and it is fundamental to reporting, and also to reporting on expert literature a lot of the time. So that just runs the fall semester. At the same time, there are a bunch of short classes, and this is what we started to fold in, because a lot of the journalists out in the field who've been reporting really want more work in 2 areas in particular. One is investigative, and one is data. And there has been so much demand for both of those segments. They run for 7 weeks each, that I think we're adding another investigative segment in the spring to the MA. There's a history of journalism class that runs for 7 weeks, and a future of journalism class that runs for 7 weeks. Not a reflection on how the future of journalism is, how long it's going to last. And you mix and match those 4 classes, the data, investigative, history, and future. In addition, and it's kind of a packed fall, you have the opportunity, if you want, to take skills classes in photography, radio, and video. And a lot of students have to sort of give up a weekend day to do that, and sometimes it can be really a lot, but you should also, we feel very strongly, have the opportunity to expand your skills when you get here to the journalism school in terms of new skills. So even if you've been out there as a practicing journalist, because there are a lot of sort of growing expectations about what you can do. At the same time, there's a lot of at the same time, you're very busy. You start working on your thesis project in the beginning of October. That's when you're assigned your advisor. And in the early years of the MA program, we had a journalist advisor and a subject area advisor, sort of like the seminars. And the idea was that you would be getting this expertise very deeply as you reported over the course of the year on this 10,000-word project. It's become a little problematic because oftentimes the people who could be your expert advisor should also be one of your main sources. And we've found that we've stepped back from that a little bit. It still happens when someone feels like they really need an outside commentator to help them fact check, to help them think through, maybe in our case, the science. But now it seems to work more consistently that we have just the one journalism school advisor. And you finish the thesis project in April, so it's later than the MS project, which is done in March, but again, it's twice as long. So you get a whole extra 4 weeks to work on it. In the spring, you continue your seminar. And I forgot to mention, you also take one elective outside the journalism school around campus. So in the science division, a lot of people take courses at the Mailman School of Public Health. They take courses in E3B, evolutionary biology, ecology, environment. They take courses in anthropology. They take courses in a whole bunch of disciplines. And in the spring, you get 2 of those. So you take 2 courses outside, you continue your work on your thesis, and you continue your seminar. And there's not much else that's going on in terms of short classes, because really you do need to focus very much on your thesis. So I hope that was clear. If not, as I said, I'm happy to answer questions about the structure or anything else.
Thanks, Marguerite.
So I can talk about the new data specialization and the dual degree. I did want to preface this, there's been a lot of throwing around of the term data and the dual degrees with computer science. And I just wanted to make the point that this isn't, sort of in the popular press you read a lot about sort of big data and data science and all that. And the programs we're introducing are not sort of cynical grabs at that kind of press. Instead, they're responses to the basic fact that systems of power are fundamentally changing based on data, code, and algorithms, and that journalists, as explainers of last resort, have to be able to understand the ways in which data, code, and algorithm are shaping the world around us. And I mean, perhaps to some extent, it's always been the case, as Marguerite said. There's specialized knowledge in the sciences that require an understanding of statistics and so on. But as these products of computer science, as these products of data science, shape the ways in which we the ways in which we communicate, shape the ways in which our society functions, I think it's something that we all have to be able to think critically about. And we also have to kind of flip the bit, if you will, and turn journalists from passive users of technology that other people build, technology that comes from the outside that doesn't necessarily reflect our ethics and values, but instead become tool makers, right? Creating new platforms, creating new ways of investigating and probing the world so that embed the kind of ethics and values that journalists have. There are certain subject areas that are starting to emerge that are new. For example, algorithmic accountability is a phrase you might have started to hear. The idea that algorithms are doing everything, computer recipes are doing everything from serving us up Google results to ad serving to controlling so much about the world around us. How do we hold them accountable, right? How do we hold the people accountable who are designing them, who often don't share or have the same sort of ethical training that we might have, or don't anticipate the societal implications of what it is that they're doing? So a lot of this emphasis on data and the emphasis on ties with computer science are because these things are becoming more and more important to society around us. It's also something that's happening more broadly across the academy. So whether it's geography, architecture, design, the humanities, each of these are having a digital branch. Something's happening because the core of their disciplines are being sort of the relentless progress of quantification, the relentless process of digitization is turning the core artifacts of each of these disciplines into something that's open to a data practice, right? So if you have the ability to think through data, if you have the ability to think through data, code, and algorithm, you suddenly have shiny superpowers that allow you to ask questions of the world that you couldn't ask before. So in the specialization that we have for the Masters of Science, and just briefly because we're technically now out of time, but I mean, in the specialization, you will have a lead up where your reporting class is like the standard reporting class, but you're also learning a bit of programming, you're learning a little bit about how to ask questions of data, code, and algorithm. You'll have a special writing seminar that's about writing with data, about the products of data, all of this so that you can learn good data hygiene, like how you document what you've done, how you show your work. That's a first order principle for a good data journalist, being able to show your work, show it to your editor, show it to someone else who can repeat what you've done. And then in the spring, you have a project, sort of a project class where you're working on a much more detailed data projects, because oftentimes data projects take longer than sort of regular projects. We're also trying to change what a quantum of journalism looks like at the school, so that your hybrid might not just be with a video or with an audio piece, but it could be an API, right? You've made some righteous data set that you've put in the world. You've made an algorithm or a recipe for doing something. All of these things should count as outputs of journalism, because they are, again, commenting on who we are and how we live and shaping that. So.
Wow. Cool. Why do you always make me follow, Mark? But here's best for last. Are you ready for this? If all of this sounds really exciting to you and you don't want to choose, you want a little bit of all of it and you don't want to, smash it into 10 months, but maybe stretch it over 2 years, and you don't want to give up your job, the part-time program is for you. Thank you. I was the kind of student who, after going through 4 years of college, I was a student here at Columbia, and working in a job that I liked, that was taking care of my medical expenses, and I was still paying student loans. So going into a graduate program, full-time student, was really daunting for me. And I, as much as I really, really wanted to be a journalist, I didn't want to disappoint my parents by giving up this awesome job that I had. So the part-time program came along, and it was a wonderful alternative, because I feel that you have all the rights and privileges of being a student, which is a great thing. You're eligible for scholarships and fellowships and internships, and you just get to be a part of all the exciting things that happen in this building every single day. So the good news is that you are basically taking all of the requirements that Betsy just outlined for you. Same classes. You're just taking them basically for most of the 6 semesters of the part-time program, one at a time. So you can, balance work. It's a lot of work, let me tell you. It was like having 2 full-time jobs. I always say, you don't watch TV for pleasure. You don't go out, to dinner very much, to the movies. That but the things that you're doing in this city are so exciting, it's so compelling, and challenge you in ways you never imagined, that you don't miss anything that you give up while doing the part-time program. Again, you're always sort of gravitating to the J School, pulling out equipment, and going out to explore the world. So what happens with the part-time program is, once you're admitted, you start in May, right after we graduate, students on a Wednesday. The part-timers come into the building on Friday for for an orientation. And then, they have this building to themselves. They have the Career Services office to themselves. They have Mark to themselves, to the extent that he hasn't been escaping to try to actually have a life of his own, because he does so much programming here. We'll either chain him to the Brown Institute, or we'll have his team open the doors for you to explore, all the really neat things that they do there. So you take the reporting class over the summer, then you come back in the fall and you start taking those modules that Betsy was talking about, the writing one, the image and sound, audience and engagement. You take them one at a time, 7 weeks, then you get a break, and then another 7 weeks. Then you come back in the spring and you take a seminar and production class, just one. And, I always like the fact that you can have a second shot at classes as a part-time student. For example, that book writing class that I was telling you about. I didn't feel like I had a great idea for a book the first time around, so I didn't even dare try to get in. It's a selective class. You actually have to be chosen, based on the strength of your idea. So I waited till the second year that I was a part-time student, and I saved my vacation days because it is a full day. That class and several others will ask you for some daytime, weekday time, and I just saved up everything, because if you think of a 15-week semester and you're giving up 1 day a week, that's about 2 weeks of vacation and change, and I had it, and I used it. And in some cases, I audited. In fact, I audited the book writing class, which means I took it for free. I sat in on it. I didn't have my work. I didn't have to produce any work to be edited, but I got a lot out of that class. I still have all the materials on how to produce a book proposal and a book contract and get an agent and all that stuff. So. You know, you are, your world is really sort of vast. The hardest part about being a part-time student is choosing, you know, which class to take. And you get to focus on certain projects like the master's project, all by itself, the second summer that you're here. And you have lots of choices in the master's project. You can do either a straight print project, magazine piece of 6,000 words, or you can do a hybrid, which is half print, half video. You get 2 advisors, which is awesome, and or you could do a radio piece. Love long-form radio. Podcasts are amazing, and you know, you can do something wonderful. And it's great to experiment. It's great to stretch because, as we pointed out, there are no more concentrations, there are no more silos, and so the curriculum is designed to make you able to tell stories in a variety of ways. You're going to be the kind of journalist who can do anything, and that's great. Yes, this week we had the Associated Press come in, you know, this wonderful gold standard of journalism, of breaking news journalism that has always been thought of a wire service, right? But this year, they're really requiring students who want to participate in its very prestigious global news internship to have video experience. And part of it is that this nonprofit news organization is seeing, you know, a lot of success in its video components. And so that tells you a lot about how the business is changing. And the idea that you can get some video, get some data, get some specialization, maybe in a subject area, science reporting, business reporting, sports journalism, education, that you can have these specializations and design them yourself and take your time doing it is really, I think, at the heart of really the beauty of the part-time program.
Thank you, Elena. Questions? I know you've got questions. Yes. If you would like to go to the microphone and be sure to speak into it so that the people who are listening to the live stream can hear your questions. And if there are others of you who have questions, maybe you can just go ahead and line up so that we'll just take them one after another.
Hey guys, thanks for spilling so much awesome information. My name's Simone. I guess I was wondering, given the prevalence of digital and content consumption online and the lower barriers to entry to get published and to, you know, put your content out there, how do you think the value of a journalism degree from a prestigious school like Columbia has changed from the time that maybe Professor Cabral or Professor Holloway were students here?
How the industry has changed.
Well, the industry and also
The value of our
the
degree.
itself.
Well, you know, one thing I think is that, you know, when I was coming up in the broadcast world, it was kind of an apprenticeship. You went to work for a network or television station or something, or a newspaper, and there were people there to help you and to kind of move you through a system. And I think that apprenticeship system has gone away completely because all of these institutions are strapped, they're lean and mean, and there is an expectation now on the part of employers that when they hire you, you're going to hit the ground running. And so I think that the value of the education has increased exponentially. You're learning here the things that you used to kind of learn on the job. So to me, that's one huge difference about why a journalism degree from Columbia is valued by employers. I don't know, I'm not sure if Ernie mentioned, but we have this enormous job fair every year in March. It's actually, I think, the week after your master's project is due. So you can kind of pick yourself up off the floor and then get your resume ready and, you know, I love going to the job fair because all my students show up in their suits and, you know, they've shaved, they look so fantastic.
You barely recognize them, right?
Yeah, you can barely recognize them. They come up and say hello. I'm like, oh, Oh, yeah, hi. But it's amazing that job fair just grows and grows, because I think that employers value what you learn here, and they need you to know it. They don't have time to teach it to you.
Yeah, I would agree, definitely, because when I left the journalism school and I went out looking for jobs, there was a feeling that, oh, it was okay that you'd gone to journalism school, but a sort of a bigger stream into the profession was really people who had done these apprenticeships and sort of worked their way up. And when I look out now, so many people who are working have a degree. And I think the employers, from what we hear, are very much looking to young people who have these skills to try and help them innovate, because it is, it is very rocky in many ways, and there's still a lot we need to figure out as a profession about what we're doing, and there seems to be a real hunger for people who can sort of synthesize, who have these many different skills, who have the ability to go deep and bring depth and nuance to their reporting and approach things from a different angle. So I actually feel the same as Betsy does, that it can make a big difference. In terms of value, like that's in a more general terms. Oh, is that,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Would you
Just
go to
go
the
stand to the
microphone?
mic,
Go
yeah.
ahead to the microphone. And if there are others of you in
It
the
just-
audience who have questions.
I'm small, sorry.
That's okay. It just helps with the stream so people can hear. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, I saw that your application requires clippings and academic writings. So what is the level of experience that you're looking for from applicants coming into the program?
The MS
Generally, applicants, you don't need to have experience coming into the Master of Science program. It always helps if you've had some experience as a student journalist, but it is not at all required. But for the MA program, you must have experience as a journalist. You really should have at least 3 years of professional experience. And by professional experience, I mean you are working professionally as a journalist, not as a student journalist. So because you spent 4 years working for the student newspaper, that is great experience, and it's perfect for the Master of Science program. For the Master of Arts program, we're looking for professional experience.
We read the applications. The faculty reads the applications, and, what are we looking for? People who can write, people who can think, people who have been paying attention to what's going on in the world, who have a sense of the current affairs, who are interested, who are curious. That's what we're looking for.
People who can articulate why they want to come to a journalism program.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how. So I can actually just remove this from the uncomfortable conversation of why you want to come to a journalism. I was at UCLA for 10 years in the statistics department, and I would, again, read applications, and people would routinely apply to our program, our particular program, looking for with specializations in finance. They want to do financial data, and I looked at my faculty, and we had no one doing finance in the faculty. I was like, why are you applying to us? Like, it seems like a bait and switch to say, yes, you're an awesome student, come study with us, when the reasons that you've expressed to come work with us don't match what we offer. So it's worth doing a little homework and matching your interests, making sure that your interests are covered here. It seems hard for me to believe that they wouldn't be, but to make sure that you can write about why you want to come here.
Take one more question that's related to curriculum, faculty, that sort of thing. We are going to get to admissions, financial aid, career services, and we also have a student panel that's ready in just a minute.
Go ahead.
If no one else has a question. I was just wondering, not necessarily on getting in wise, but just experience-wise, what your thoughts are on going straight from undergrad into a graduate school program or taking a few years off and working.
We've noticed we've been getting a lot of applicants who are coming to us right out of school, and that's great, because they, college, undergraduate experience has changed a lot, so that they're going abroad and they're creating their own blogs. They're not even, just necessarily going with the campus daily newspaper anymore. They're creating their own blogs and doing lots of exciting things in social media, for example. we like the idea that, so they're always very welcome. And of course, we like the idea that you can go out and work for a bit, and not necessarily in journalism, because as you know, there are a lot of jobs out there where you're writing a lot too. And any institution, whether it's a media company or, an investment bank, they have a message to put out there, and they're online, and very often you're needing to adapt and develop a lot of skills in those arenas too. And certainly, there's something to be said for that level of maturity that comes with working and paying your rent, and learning to navigate a city like New York, for example. And so. I think that because the application asks you for two different types of essays, a personal essay and a professional essay, you have the chance to show us how whatever you have experienced, in terms of your work life and your personal background that has been leading you to us, you can articulate it there. And again, as we've been saying, we're looking for those that curiosity, that love of writing. Especially, writing is so key. We'll even, on top of that, give you a writing test to make sure of it, that you can make a case for yourself.
I mean, I've had students who've come right out of college who've been incredibly well motivated. They really know what they want. They're just going for it, and I think it's been fantastic for them. I've had other students who have been out in the world and have come to this, and they're also motivated because they realize that maybe the first direction or the path that they took or wasn't quite the right thing for them. So I think it's very personal. If somebody coming through undergraduate really knows that this is what they want, and they're not tired of being in school and they just want to go out there and get it, fantastic. It may be better for you to take a few years to make sure that this is the thing that you really want. I think it's the motivation. It's a very hard program. And you got to really want it and be, ready to work as hard as we expect you to work.
Let's take the next question.
Good morning. Question I have, how do I ask this? What's an example of some of the assignments that you as professors give to the students?
The MA or MS?
Well,
or?
or what are you
For
thinking
the,
of, MS?
I'm thinking
or?
of the MS program.
Well, when you take the reporting class, you're going to be
Speak into the mic, please.
when you take the reporting class, you're going to be using New York City as your laboratory. That's our classroom. So you're going to be choosing, a lot of times professors will choose geographic beats. And so the great thing about the curriculum, I think, is also that you're not spoon-fed assignments, like go cover that, press conference that de Blasio is having, or this homicide in Bushwick or something. You've got to, enterprise means you're finding stories that you can't find anywhere else, that you discover while on your beat. So maybe you're given a parameter, like go find a school story, go find an economic story, the job numbers are coming out, go find someone who's been looking for a job for 8 months, go. It's sort of like your job to then say, okay, Department of Labor, where are the unemployment offices? I'm going to go there. And you're expected to figure it out. And you're going to make mistakes. Absolutely. But,
you learn you learn your beat by doing a beat report. So you're not completely thrown out there in the
Right.
world. You're given a beat as,
Of course.
and then and then you learn about that area. You learn about the demographics of the area and how the community board and what the institutions are, what the unemployment rate is, who the community leaders are. That's your first assignment, is to figure out your beat. And then you're told, okay, go find a story. Find something interesting on a particular subject.
You'll also be given the foundation, the infrastructure for that story, let's say. So you will have had a class on what is a lead, what is a nut graph, how do I put quotes together? How do I ask the question to get that quote? So again, you will be prepared for that assignment, but you'll be on your own to get it, and you'll feel that independence, and you'll get out of your comfort zone, and you'll learn to ask the questions that your mother has told you never ever to ask, like, how'd you get that scar, or, things like that. And it will be scary, but it will be exhilarating, and then you will come back with an 800-word piece that took every bit out of you, but, is a legitimate news story that could run in any newspaper.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One last question.
What if I have two?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So my first question, you were mentioning that you read all of the pieces, or read some of the pieces that we submit as applicants. So I'm interested in the MS program full-time. and specifically in documentary. But I don't have any documentary clips, so I've done writing. Would you recommend that we submit in terms of, should we try to create something?
No.
Like, okay.
No. No.
Do you want me to take a video on my iPhone and sort of?
No. No. I think that, many of my students now in documentary have never shot video,
Okay.
ever. So they're now learning how to shoot. They have a compelling reason, as Mark says, to be a documentary filmmaker. And they are able to write about that. We will teach you how to shoot and how to edit. So that can be part of your essay. There's a third essay required for the documentary program. You have the personal, the professional, which is everybody has to write for the documentary. It's specialized to why documentary. And that may be a particular story, subject matter that you're really interested, a passion that you found. You just, you can't stop yourself from watching documentaries all the time, and you're thinking, gee, maybe I could do this. I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, I remember I was about 27 years old, and I was working in radio news, and I thought, I really like documentaries. I want to do that. I didn't have a clue how I was going to do that, how that was going to happen. It was just something, I remember sort of saying it really tentatively, like, gee, I think maybe I'd like to do that. I'd like to be a producer. So that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. You can just write about it in a very, in a compelling way, in a convincing way, and that's what we're looking at.
And then part two, then, I'll be really quick, is just in terms of the samples and the essays and our voice in that. Do we want to err on the side of formal, err on the side of what we understand as newspaper writing, or could we submit a piece that is reflective of our voice, but maybe not necessarily something that we would call a journalism piece?
I think, what do you think?
I think, we, as you know, we read all these, and it is really nice to see sort of somebody's range.
Yeah.
So I would try to include, if you do that, which I think a lot of us would really enjoy, or maybe I should I would enjoy reading that.
Yeah.
Just make sure that it doesn't sort of imbalance
Sure.
that you show that you can also do the other, that you have a strong engagement with doing it a more traditional way.
Okay.
But seeing someone's mind at play and their use of
Like
language
blogging, for example.
because that gives us a lot of insight into your creativity, the way you think, and I am going to speak for all of us. We would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Faculty, thank you all very, very much. I'm going to invite my student panelists to come up now.
If you have questions about the documentary program, anyone, my email is on the school website. You can find me and you can email me and ask questions, or give me a call, or come up to the school and we can meet and have a coffee if you're interested in the doc program.
You can find the email addresses and telephone numbers of all of the faculty on the faculty site on the web page. So if you go up to the top of the page and just click on faculty, you'll be able to find everybody. Do I have all my name cards? Oh, yes. Okay. I am going to invite each of the students to introduce yourselves, if you would. Talk a little bit about what drew you to the journalism school, why you applied, what it is that you're studying here, and what you're finding here as students. And of course, we'll be taking questions as well.
Go ahead.
I'll start then.
She was in your seat last year.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Oni Wohacha. I literally was in your seat. Seriously. My background is in law. I'm an attorney, and I don't have journalism experience. I'm a documentary student full-time, and the reason why I wanted to pursue a career in journalism at Columbia was due to my human rights background and interest in women's rights in Africa. and also social entrepreneurship. I was working with people and I felt like, why not tell their stories on a broader platform as opposed to blogging one-on-one? So I decided to just come and check out Columbia Journalism School open house late December, and I was encouraged to apply, and now I'm here.
I'm Chris Massa. I actually have a similar story, although not law. I was in business. I was a management consultant for about 10 years. And journalism school was something I had thought about in my early and mid-20s and kept putting it off for one reason or another. And then finally, I was unhappy at work. The only parts of my job that I really enjoyed were the writing parts. So we did a lot of writing and a lot of position papers and things on really boring topics, but the actual writing was a lot of fun for me. So I kind of revisited the journalism school idea, and Christine was the first person I met at a grad school fair 2 years ago. So I'm in the part-time program in my second year, and it's been a great experience. It's been a really kind of wild ride. So I'm still working through the program, and happy to answer any questions about how that mix and that blend is working out.
Hello, and good
You
morning.
speak directly into the microphone.
Is this better? Okay. Hello, I'm Isha De. I am an MA science student right now. So before coming here, I worked as a business journalist with Reuters for about 8 years. And I was focusing on healthcare companies, and it kind of, segued right into this program. I felt like, as a business journalist, I was focusing more on the numbers, not really on the science, and I felt this program was a really good opportunity for me to understand science and know how to be a science writer. The experience till now, it's been just over 2 months, has been fantastic. I think even in my 8 years experience, there were things that I did not quite really know existed about science writing, and I'm just experiencing something new, learning something new every single day, and it's been absolutely exhilarating.
I have a feeling that a lot of you will have more specific questions for our student panelists. They're happy to take questions, and I think that the questions that you have will generate additional questions. So again, we can take the microphone and start with any questions that you have.
Come on,
This is
everybody.
not possible.
We're the ones who really know what's going on. So,
Question for the attorney. So can you talk about what you did prior to coming to the school? Maybe where you got your law degree, how you came upon law, maybe some of your work in human rights.
I think you're at the wrong panel.
and then how you shifted into journalism, of course.
Okay. Well, let me see. I went to law school. I just took a year off after graduating from college, and I went to Ghana to work. And then I went to law school the year after. So I was about 22, 23 when I started. Graduated 25, 2009. So I was really young and like, okay, what do I want to do next? My interest for going into law school again was my passion for human rights issues. After law school, I took the bar, and I was licensed, and I am still licensed in New York and New Jersey, but I decided to go away, and I went to Ghana again, this time as a consultant for a women's rights organization that I interned before going to law school, and I was there for about 2 years, and I traveled extensively throughout the continent while abroad in Ghana. And I realized that by meeting these women, I wanted to share their stories. It wasn't just about fundraising. I was a human rights consultant and also communications. And it's funny, I stumbled upon, I guess, video storytelling, let's say. I had my laptop, and they would make me go out and interview different human rights activists and interview the stories of those that we funded. And I remember one particular woman who was sold to a particular shrine. This is in northern Ghana. And in this particular community, if you have debt, they will sell a woman family member to a particular shrine. And it can last for about 10, 15, 20 years until the debt has been paid off. And these ladies, they are sexually abused and raped, and a lot of them have children by the person that oversees the shrine. So I remember interviewing her, and I was like, wow, how interesting would it be to share her story, but on a much more powerful level as opposed to my little MacBook. And that's kind of how I fell in love with the idea of possibly being a multimedia journalist. Did I answer your question? Okay. Thanks.
Next question.
That's kind of tough to come up with a question after that because that's
Can
actually
you
really compelling.
speak directly into the microphone, please?
I was saying that's a really compelling background story, so now my question seems very lackluster. But it's a very practical question about the part-time program.
Sure.
How are you feeling like that balance is actually working out? And do you feel like taking the pause and kind of doing, your career, not completely 100% of the time, but also doing the joint program, trying to balance both? How's that actually working out for you?
It's, I had to find, it took me a couple of months to sort of get into the right groove of balancing my professional life and my academic life. But once I found it, it was, the school sort of makes it, the school sort of makes it easy to do that with weekend classes for part-time students. And there are certain classes, like this past fall, that were just at night and really sort of designed for part-time students so you could go after work. Once you fall into that rhythm, it's a lot of work and it's busy and it's, like Elena was saying, there's not a lot of downtime for movies and stuff like that, but it's definitely doable. And I think you just have to, right from the beginning, be very good at time management, because it's not where the full-time students have a ton of work to do in 10 months. They're just doing this kind of work when you're being pulled in very, very distinct and very opposite directions with very different masters. Sometimes, like for me, I didn't tell my professional world for a while that I was doing this. So a lot of times, depending on what your job situation's like, whether people would sort of respect the fact that you're going back to school for possibly something different than what you're doing, that gets a little bit tough to manage because nobody really understands. But it's doable, and you just have to kind of focus on time management and figuring out when you're going to, work on school and when you're going to, focus on your job. Does that answer? Is that good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I could ask about 10 follow-ups.
Find me after. I'd be happy to answer them.
That was kind of my question, but I have a follow-up question. It's a little unrelated. And I've talked to a number of people who've applied to this program, participated in the program. And I think one of the things that I find most common is this idea of, in journalism in general, this idea of hunger and adventure and sort of the pieces. I think what I really want to know about, now that my question was stolen, is the pieces you all are writing. What are you doing here? Sort of what are you most passionate about? I'm sure all three of you have something you're working on, or something that you're dreaming about. And the end goal, sort of what is the dream piece, 1, 2, or 3 of you have in your head that, you're working on now or you want to finish?
And maybe you could each also talk a little bit about, as you were thinking about applying to the journalism school, what holes you were trying to fill in your background or training so that you would be able to approach these dream pieces. Oni, why don't you start?
Okay, sure. Seems like there are 2 questions. So in terms of, start with the later one. Like I said, I don't really have quote-unquote journalism experience. I know there are people in other professions that become journalists, and you don't necessarily need a degree to be a journalist, but like Betsy said, I feel that now if you were to get a position, your employer would expect a lot from you and to hit the ground running. So I wanted to take the time and get the training that I needed, and it is nothing like I expected at all. It is very intense, it's a lot of work, and the program will definitely push you. In terms of the holes that I wanted to fill, I wanted to get stronger in writing more creatively as opposed to kind of like this convoluted way that you write as a lawyer. And I also wanted to just explore opportunities in multimedia. In terms of the project that I'm working on now, as a documentarian student, we have to pitch an idea by the end of this month. And if it's selected, you work on that story starting next year. And then you can also continue either in the summer or in the fall. I don't want to go into details as to what the pitch is, but if it's selected, hopefully you might even be screened in one of the, we have Doc Fest that's coming up, and my overall goal is to get the skills that I need in order to really make impact. I really want to travel, and I want to tell the stories of people who I feel like are not really represented in the media. So in order to do that, I feel like I need the training that the school is giving me now.
You know, for me, when I came here, because my background was in business, a lot of the reporting I did for for the first year was business or economic or stories that at least had some kind of a business angle, because I was comfortable with the content, and I just sort of needed to tackle the journalism piece. So how do you write for, you know, business for newspapers or for media? So when it came to my master's project, I really wanted to kind of break out of that mold. So I'll just talk a little bit about the story that I did for my master's project, and hopefully that'll give you some insight. So I decided to completely take business off the table. I didn't want to do anything in business, and I knew I wanted to do a radio documentary. So what I ended up doing was a 3-part radio series on the unique challenges of young adult cancer survivors. So people who get cancer between like 18 and 40 deal with a whole bunch of different issues, life issues, even after treatment, that folks in other age groups just don't deal with. And it was kind of an under-addressed area, partly because that's the only age group of cancer survivors where they haven't actually seen a drop in survival rates in the last 20 to 25 years. So I thought that might be an interesting area to focus on. So I just went out and I introduced myself to all of the cancer advocacy groups that focus on young adults, and then through them, they introduced me to a lot of the patients and survivors that they worked with. And then there were 3 parts that each focused on a different issue, and I used those stories and those voices, because it was radio, to tell, you know, to kind of share that overall story about what's unique about someone who's 25 and gets cancer. So the next step, because you kind of asked, you know, what am I going to do with it? The next step, because I just wrapped it up, was to try to pitch it to NPR or some other NPR member station that might be interested in a health story or a cancer story, and try to actually get it on air. So that's kind of what I'm working on now.
So, as a business reporter, after 8 years, I just wanted to get away from writing about numbers and business and what it means for corporations, and give them a chance to make money out of it. So, you know, that's why I came to the MA program, to learn how to become a science reporter. And since I was already writing on healthcare stories, healthcare companies, I, you know, just to make sure that I could show the professors here that I have the skill set, I try to do more stories that sort of, you know, fills in more of the science part of it. And now that I'm here, I'm basically working on something which sort of is... I'll just give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm working on. It's basically a long-form story that deals with how medical innovation can make a change for developing countries. I'm not going into the details, but it'll be a long-form story. It'll have, hopefully, the narrative from maybe a doctor and maybe an innovator, maybe a mother and a child whom it actually helped, the innovation. That said, I think the next step, if the story, you know, works out fine, the next step will probably be trying to pitch it to, you know, one of publications and see if it can get published. So yeah, I think if you have any other questions, but I think that's what it is in a nutshell.
Thank you, Isha. Next question, and please speak into the mic.
Sure thing. So it sounds like each of you have had a really great experience before coming here, and it seems like it's going a little contrary to what some of the professors were saying before about students going right out of undergrad, being able to like transition right into getting their master's here and MS. So although you wouldn't go back and change time and get your master's before because you've all done such great things, how do you guys see beneficial for an undergrad student, fresh out of undergrad, going into a master's or a master's program here at Columbia? How do you, what are your recommendations, I would say? Because you're an attorney, you've done business, you've been at Reuters. I am a senior in college. So I've had good experience at college, but, how do I transition then? I hope I was clear.
I'll go first. You went first
Yes.
last time.
All right, go ahead.
First of all, the fact that you're a senior in college means we're all very envious of you. So enjoy the rest of your senior year. But, it's hard to say generally. Obviously there are a lot of people here that have come right out of undergrad. There are a lot of people who've had a life before they came here. For me, I think this would have been a very different experience for me at 22, because what I have sort of behind me is understanding how to be a professional in a professional environment, knowing how to have a boss, knowing how to, please a lot of people in a workplace. And, while this isn't necessarily a professional environment, some of those skills do come in handy. So I found that I've really just been able to kind of focus on learning how to do journalism. Learning how to find a story, learning how to report a story, and not necessarily when I go on a job interview, not having to worry about all the hurdles that come with just learning how to be a professional, which takes some time. I mean, it definitely took me a bunch of years to sort of get comfortable with that, and I'm happy that I'm doing it after that's already behind me. But I have, a whole bunch of friends that I've made here in classes that have come right out of undergrad, and they're awesome journalists. Like, they're just really good, and I'm constantly in awe of some of the things that they come up with because they grew up at a different time, they think differently than, about certain things than I do. So I think there are advantages and disadvantages. You just have to, figure out whether you're comfortable sort of learning a lot of different things, a lot of which are journalism, some of which are learning how to be a professional all at once, or whether you want to kind of get that first piece behind you and then just focus on the journalism.
Can I just add to that? I'd say don't be intimidated, really. I'm in the full-time program, and it's so diverse. I meet so many students straight from undergrad. My particular documentary class is 14 of us, and it ranges. We have 9 out of the 14 are 10 international. Some are 22, some are 23. We have a 40-year-old. I mean, it's very, very diverse. I find that with journalism is very individualistic. It depends on what you want. If you feel like you're ready, like Betsy West said, to get in there and do it, then do it. Don't feel like, I need to get 10 years experience prior to. I really think it depends on ambition more than anything. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone is their own person. Like you said, you have prior professional experience. I'm sure when you go to the career fair, it's going to be very different than someone else. But then again, you might have awesome ideas, and you might be a very creative writer. So I would say if you feel like you're ready, go for it.
Next question.
Hi. Ona, you mentioned something about your expectations and how the program that you were in surprised you. And I was wondering if you and you other two could speak about both how your respective programs have met your expectations and something that has surprised you about them. Thank you.
Take this one.
Aisha, why don't you start?
Yeah, sure. I guess I have already spoken about how I've been extremely surprised by some of the things. Met my expectation. I think I wanted to know how to write about science, and being a part of the science seminar, which is like the biggest part of the MA program here. The seminar is it takes up most of your time and your effort and your brain space. So I think it's probably an understatement to say that it's meeting expectation because it's so much beyond that. But it's just getting into all the nitty-gritties of of the beat that you're choosing to work on. So there are 4 beats. There's science and business, and politics and arts. And obviously, I can only speak for science. You guys might be interested in something else, but basically, the science seminar deals with science, health, and environment, and it's cramming in so much content that you sometimes, there's no way you would have known it while you're working on a beat. In a professional world, you're working on a very specific beat, which you're supposed to delve down as deep as possible. There's no way that you are going to know so much about everything around it, so much about the background, so much about the history, so much about the possible future, about the debates that are so inherent in any field between scientists or between artists or anything for that matter, or between politicians. So I think knowing about that holistic picture and then being able to sort of going back and thinking where exactly you want to focus has given me at least a great way of basically figuring out what I want to do next, and that is what I came here for. I knew I wanted to be a science writer, but I did not know what exactly I wanted to write about. Now I think I have a better idea.
The biggest surprise for me was the kind of storytelling I like to do. So when I came here, I just thought I would write. I didn't have any video experience. I never really used, kind of amateur photography in undergrad, but that wasn't really my expectation. I just thought I'd learn how to do journalism and learn how to report, and then I would write. And it turns out that I really like radio storytelling. So I took the radio workshop in the spring as my seminar class, and we put on an NPR-style show every Friday afternoon where we actually, we produce and direct and report and do every job that goes into putting on a radio show. And I just really took to it, and I ended up doing my master's in radio documentary. And now I'm actually doing some work at WNYC on their business desk as a producer, so some freelance work. So for me, it was just kind of not keeping my options open, but being open to things that were very different than what my expectations were going in, and just kind of learning that about myself, and then now being able to pursue it.
I'd say the biggest surprise, at least in a full-time program, is the amount of work that you're about to go through. It's a lot of work. I'll just give you like a little overview. So if you're a full-time Masters of Science students, you have your reporting class, and then you have something called essentials. So you have media law, you have the history of journalism, you have the business of journalism, you have ethics. And I guess I was surprised how much stuff goes into journalism. The school has a very intense curriculum. It's not just about reporting, it's about really understanding even the evolution of journalism in the United States. So that kind of took me aback, but it definitely exceeded my expectations because I didn't think that we would dive that deep. Also, how much free time you have. Not so much free time, but time management is really on your court. A professor of mine said journalism is between time management and creativity. And it's so true. You will be asked to go out and report. You can live anywhere. I mean, you really have to manage your time, factor in transportation, get in a story, have enough time to sit down and write it and crank it out. It's a lot of responsibility on you. It's not like any other program where you have a book you read, you highlight, you memorize, you take your notes, and then you kind of regurgitate. This is a very creative process. If I answered your question.
Thank you.
Hi, so on a sort of similar train of thought, is there anything you wish you had done or knew or even experienced before entering the school that would have really maybe helped between the time of admission and starting your classes that maybe you can give us advice about?
You mean between like getting
So-
accepted in the winter and
Yeah,
and-
anything we should be doing to prepare for
Oh.
actual classes?
I mean, I didn't really do anything to prepare. But not because I didn't want to prepare. There's not, if you've gotten through the application process, obviously there are a whole bunch of people here who think that you're a good fit for Columbia, or for this particular school. And your first class is the reporting boot camp. I mean, it's called reporting. I call it a boot camp because it feels like boot camp while you're in it. But you're going to learn, they're going to break down everything that you already know and then sort of reteach you the right way to do journalism. So if you've spent a lot of time kind of learning something that you think is journalism, that very well could change as soon as you start that boot camp. So I think if you've gotten in, if you've gotten through that process, like you're ready to come here, just kind of come with an open mind and be ready to, work really hard. But I don't think there's anything you can cram between, acceptance and starting.
Okay, so you don't have any regrets about not doing anything before entering?
I don't.
Okay, great.
I can add to that. I'd say if you can live close. I'm in New York. I don't live in Manhattan. And it definitely, the commute can weigh on you a bit. Carrying heavy video equipment up the train, it's not fun. So if you can live close, I would say do that. And if you're not a New Yorker, if you're coming from another state, or if you're an international student, they have recommended readings. I'd say even if you are a New Yorker, read it. Try to take time out to just kind of explore the train system, New York City, because when you start reporting, you're going to be asked to go to pretty much all the boroughs. You'll go to Queens, you'll go to Manhattan, Brooklyn, etc. So you kind of want to get used to transportation. My beat was transportation. So, and it depends on your professor, but a lot of students tend to do either community work in particular boroughs or transportation. So if you can get familiar with New York City, that'd be good.
I'll just add an MA perspective on that, and it's something I regret not doing. I think, between acceptance and coming to the school, that's a great time to probably start thinking about your master's thesis project. You don't have to, have a narrowed down idea, but at least start toying with the idea and kind of try to get a sense of what really excites you and what would you really want to write your long form piece on. Because it's supposed to be a 10,000 words piece. That's a lot of words and it's a lot of time, and you wouldn't want to get stuck with the wrong idea.
Me again. This is kind of an opinion question. What do you guys think is the future of monetizing content, especially on the web? It's like a big question, I'm sure, but all of people in the school are obviously looking to make a livelihood out of journalism. So in like a world where people aren't necessarily willing to pay to play, where do you think the money is going to come from?
Wow, that's a serious question. Anybody have any ideas? You want me to jump in?
I think if you want to become a writer, there's no getting away from it, right? And I do think in this age of hyper-information, you should just focus on how good the quality is, and content will be monetized whether you like it or not. There's no getting away from it. I think we all sort of know that. So yeah, I think what we can do as writers is focus on our quality and differentiate it as much as possible.
And there's no right answer, and I think anybody who thinks they've sort of found the silver bullet, probably will be proved wrong. I think what's really interesting are some of the different experiments that are going on. So whether it's paywalls, whether it's micro payments for content. I have a professor here that actually got together. She's a long form writer, and she got together with a bunch of other long form writers, and they created a company to just produce Amazon singles. So basically, take a New Yorker piece and multiply it 3 times. It's not quite a book, but it's a pretty long piece of writing, nonfiction, and they're selling them as Amazon singles and trying that as an experiment, not necessarily knowing if it's going to work or not. So I think it's less about what is the future and really just paying attention to the experiments that seem to be working, because everybody's experimenting with something. I know in the radio world, we're trying to figure out how do you monetize podcasts, right? Because that's, sort of the on-demand delivery outside of terrestrial radio for audio storytelling. And, there's a lot of different ideas floating around, but it's frustrating because it's not a clear path, but it's also really interesting because it's kind of a sandbox, and you get to play with a lot of different ideas. And, so really to just kind of pay attention to what you think is working, and then maybe connect with the people, if you're interested in that model, maybe connect with the people that are doing that.
I'd say that's a really good question. That's something that we explore in business of journalism, monetizing content, and we look at different case studies. I had an excellent professor, Adam Klein, and at the end of the class, we actually create a project. My class, we created somewhat of a digital platform where we do try to monetize content. And you'd be surprised, you can actually run and really execute the project. I come from a kind of business entrepreneurship background, so that's important to me. How do I leave here and maybe create a media company? How do I make money in this field? So I get you. But I think that it's important to, while you're here, really understand the skills, know how to write, how to be an effective journalist. But there are classes that will explore that field, and you can always speak further with the professors and really see how can you take an entrepreneurial route after you finish the program.
And that's just to build on. That's actually a really good point, because people don't like to pay for content, and nobody pays for bad content.
Yeah.
Right. So learn how to produce good content, and then and then sort of figure out the model and how to sell it.
I was hoping to get a little bit of insight into the atmosphere created within the program, both the MS and the MA, in terms of collaboration versus competition, and maybe the emphasis placed on carving out your own path versus working with your peers and other people within the program.
I can just start with that. I'm very lucky because my particular doc group, they're excellent. We're like a family. We're like a clan. It's good and bad because we don't really we don't really hang out with the rest of the class because we're always together, but it's great. We have a WhatsApp group. We go out for drinks, and everyone is really supportive. And I was actually kind of taken aback because I didn't know what to expect. There isn't that level of competition within my particular doc group. The overall Masters of Science program, I don't find people are competitive. I feel like people are very friendly. People are very sweet and nice. I mean, I think we compete with ourselves. Sometimes you get down, like, oh my God, why am I here? I suck. But you just have to be focused and realize there's something that they saw in you, So to answer that question, it's a very collaborative, I feel, environment. I don't think that the students are competitive in that way.
Yeah, I would agree. What I found is in some of the freelance work that I've done and just my kind of nascent entry into newsrooms now that's kind of just starting is the workplace is competitive. There are definitely journalists that sit next to each other that have to produce for a living, and they're a little bit competitive with each other. Here, it's entirely collaborative. I mean, the classes that I've had and the teams that I've worked on, I mean, we share story ideas, you share sources, you interview that person for a story 6 months ago, would you mind sharing their contact info so I can get in touch? I mean, that happens all the time. So I don't really get this, I never got the sense here that any of my fellow students are competing with me for the same thing. It's usually we're all sort of just running really hard to do the best work and trying to support each other when we can.
Yeah, I think that's true. And so especially in the MA program, it's probably true for MS as well. You're not exactly, you're given one particular set of questions and everybody's answering that. Everybody's chosen their own story, their own beat, and they're working on that. So you are your own competition, and you're not exactly, no two stories can be compared that way, right? So yeah, I think in fact, since we are mostly all experienced journalists, we even, share our past sources, our actual professional world sources with our current students. And friends. So yeah, I think it's very collaborative.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I'm interested in the master's documentary program, and I'm international myself. And my interest in documentary developed when I was back home. I'm from Pakistan, and I wanted to know if I, take this program, and if I'm shooting a documentary, would there be an option for me to travel back home and take some video clips from there, or do I have to do it here while I'm in school?
That's a good question. I think everyone asks that. No, you can't. So this is the way it works. You shoot your documentary, you start next year. So you really do it either starting from May to August, or you can do it from August to December. What you could do with the permission of Betsy West or June Cross, let's say you want to start it in August, you have the summer break. I mean, if you go to Pakistan back on your own, you can shoot some clips that you might be able to include in your doc. But for the most part, they want us to do it in the tri-state area because you need to go back and get sources. You need to verify. If you're doing it abroad, it's difficult. But I'll say this. I had a story idea when I came in, and I kind of put it to the back burner because I realized I don't want to poison it. I don't want to, I don't want to taint it in a way. You can always do a story idea later. We had a guest speaker who wanted to do something in Pakistan. It was actually outlawed in Pakistan. Yes. Are you familiar with that documentary? Okay. It's an alum from the program that did that. So she actually waited till she graduated, and then she went ahead and did the documentary. So no, you can't do something abroad, but to help you feel better, we have a lot of Pakistani doc students, and they're great, actually. And it's really diverse in a doc program. Like I said, it's about 14 of us, and I think like 9 are international. And we have 2 Pakistanis currently in my cohort. So,
Thank you.
Welcome.
I would also say for the MA students do sometimes do some international reporting for their master's thesis. So the MA is somewhat different, but again, for the MS students, because you're working very, very closely with your advisor and you're doing your thesis project as something that's going to stretch you, something that you're going to learn from, something that you're going to take chances with. Your thesis advisor will come back to you and say, I think you need to go back and ask that person this question, and this question. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that if you're doing something overseas because, number one, it's very expensive, and number two, you don't have the time to do it. Whereas if you do it here in the tri-state area, you're better able to do that kind of thing. One last question, and then we're going to move on to career services.
Thank you. My question more so refers to the application. What resources did you guys use to actually, when you started filling out your applications, like what kind of, like with regards to like clips and the essays and such, what kind of, I guess, help did you guys get in doing that, especially since, this is more so for the MS students, like how did you guys, I guess, pick out clips and essays to apply to the school?
Like I said, I didn't have journalism experience, but I used to write for a magazine, a lifestyle magazine. Mm-hmm. So I had clips, articles that I submitted. And in terms of the video, I mean, I made it clear that I don't have any video experience. And like Betsy said, you don't necessarily need video experience for the documentary or even for anything. You'll take video 1 when you get here if you choose. So I focused more so on my articles. My essay, I made sure that I told my story, why I want to do journalism, and I tried to make it as compelling as possible. And I was very honest, like I don't have the experience. And I've done a lot of speaking engagements, and I've been on camera, so I was able to use that to kind of show, I guess, because I'm also interested in broadcast. So I wanted to just kind of make sure I cover all bases. So that was pretty much it. I used articles that I've submitted for this magazine, made sure that my story was compelling and honest enough, and used some YouTube links shows that I've been on. And you take a writing test. So you want to make sure that you are on top of it in terms of news. I mean, I like the news anyway, but I really took the time to make sure I really understood what's going on in the world, you know. You have ISIS issues, what countries border Iraq, like just general things you may not really think about, like those kind of things are important. The Ebola outbreak, what countries are impacted by. I'm not saying this is what's going to be on the test.
Of course.
I'm just
I
saying
actually
like
took
what.
the test before too.
Okay.
I've been rejected for this school once, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, just kind of knowing current events is important because when you take the exam, they'll ask you questions like that, and you should know what's going on in the world in terms of the news. So that's how I prepared.
First of all, awesome, good for you. I mean, this is something you want, go after it. You know, if anyone else has tried and you know, they're here for a second time, that's fantastic. So good luck. It's a great question because if you don't have journalism experience like I didn't, it's actually something I really labored over because I didn't have a body of work. I had written some position papers for the job that I had on like really just terribly boring topics. And I was almost embarrassed to submit them because I thought like, you know, whoever's reading these is either going to fall asleep by the end of them or, you know, they're going to say this has nothing to do with journalism. But they were writing samples. And I think that's what you have to remember is these don't have to be newspaper articles. These don't have to be things that were published. They just have to be some example of what your writing is in any context, in any format. Can you string sentences together in a way that makes sense, that's meaningful to a reader, even if the content is not your favorite or not what you'd want people to read of yours? So I did one of those, and I think I had maintained a blog on economic policy for a while. It's actually kind of a funny story, but I started it because my dad and I used to have these crazy arguments about like politics and economics. So I said, you know what, let's put it in a blog and let's just start like blogging back and forth so we can not be shouting at each other across the dinner table. And we did that, and we did it for a while, and I just submitted some samples from that because it was just a sample of me kind of thinking about something and trying to articulate it on the page. Not journalism, opinion, but it was just a writing sample. So don't stress too much about the type of, you know, clips that you may have or what they're calling a clip. It's really just something that gives some expression to who you are and how you put words together. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but
That's very helpful.
okay. And good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Then we're going to move on then. I'm going to invite, first of all, thank you to all of you, our students, for being here Saturday morning.
I need to download this, and it kind of disappeared into this area, and I need to find it and put it on the desktop. This looks so different from my yeah. Just pop it up. Okay, great. But then I just want to do this for now. Okay. Here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start while people are taking their seats. This is a short version of a longer video that we've got on the site that you can look at, and it's of the Career Expo 2013. Some students put it together, and it's fun to watch, so we'll go ahead and start.
I think, start off a little nervous, but
Can you hear it?
once you sit down, you can take it. You realize people are genuinely interested in, trying to get you to where you need to be after graduation.
I have been very impressed with how excited everybody is, and how well prepared everyone is. Good questions, good energy. It's been great.
I have ABC, About.com, The Katie Couric Show, The Nation, The Washington Post, and The Rap News. And I'm not done.
I mean, my role in this is really just to do my best to connect these people with where we do have job opportunities or could potentially at some point in the future. And just, not to let these kind of talented people slip through our fingers.
This guy told me that I have exactly what they want, and he's gonna offer me a job.
And then, one other thing. Sorry. Just going to let this scroll while I talk. This is a list of, sorry. I want this like big. Sorry, I have a MacBook Air at home, and it is, okay, good. So this is just going to scroll while I talk, and these are names of companies that hired our students in the last few years. So just a bit about me in the context of our team. I'm a former newspaper reporter who worked in California, Minnesota, and Philadelphia. And I also did some freelance writing, and I taught journalism at NYU before joining the team here. The rest of my colleagues are also former journalists from broadcast news, newspapers, and wire services. And two of the people on our team are alums of the school who were reporters as well. And so a lot has changed because of the internet and mobile, and all we can say is that you just need to not listen to the naysayers who tell you that print is dead, that there are no jobs, that the salaries are low, etc. From our perspective, what we see an extremely thriving job market, and we see jobs abounding. This is a great time to get into journalism. However, job applicants also abound, and we feel that coming to Columbia gives you the competitive edge. So hardly a week goes by that we don't hear from our grads, our very recent grads, who are reporting back to us some career success. So just this week, here I heard from a 2012 grad who has just sort of come off this incredible project at the Des Moines Register, where she was the main reporter on this series on farm life. It got a lot of press because they used this sort of 3D program called Oculus that has just been just a really fascinating digital interactive tool. And she's going to an enterprise reporting job at the Minneapolis Star Tribune. The same day I heard from a student who wanted to share with me that she's just had a story published in The New Yorker, a 2012 grad. It was fantastic, really, really well written. And also I heard from a student from Canada who graduated in 2012 who said, hey, I'm ready to move on. I'm wondering if you can just give me some pointers, who might be hiring. I've been at this newspaper in Nova Scotia for a while, and I look at her resume, and she has been winning awards every year, best, young journalist in Canada, 2012, finalist for the National Magazine Award. I mean, just really impressive stuff, and she's just about to have some big long-form narrative on climate change come out in The Walrus, which is Canada's sort of Mother Jones. So for a broader picture, these are just anecdotes, I understand. So for a broader picture, you should take some time and go on LinkedIn and do a search of Columbia Journalism School grads and the greater New York area or wherever you're interested in working, and you will see unfold on LinkedIn just some job titles and some places where people work, and it's impressive. So I also want to talk about, oh, I forgot, there's one student who we heard on Monday, he's leaving the Village Voice to become BuzzFeed's national crime reporter. And that gives me a chance to talk about BuzzFeed, because BuzzFeed is, I like to talk about BuzzFeed because it's a chance for me to talk to you about how Columbia is not just, we're not just a bunch of, paper pushing traditionalists. We are totally all over the digital explosion, and BuzzFeed has hired maybe about 15 of our students into news reporting jobs. They're really growing past the clicky digital, clickbait stuff and into hardcore reporting. And so besides the student who's now the crime reporter, we've got one of our grads is the national immigration reporter. One of our grads is the worldwide LGBT reporter. One of our grads is covering human rights and women's rights in Africa. Another grad got to the Ukraine just before the Ukraine crisis exploded, and he's been covering that. One of our students is the night editor for BuzzFeed, Michelle Broder Van Dyke, and you see her name every morning. She lives in Hawaii, so it's daytime for her. It's like the perfect job. We have a student who covers entertainment in the LA Bureau, and that company's growing, and we have our hooks into that company. We have also had three students get hired by Vice in the last year or 6 months. One's at Verge, 2 are at Vocative. We are in the process of establishing summer internships with BuzzFeed, with Bustle, which covers sort of women's issues, with Mike, which used to be Policy Mike, and now it's just Mike. We have an exclusive internship with the Wall Street Journal that we sort of hammered out in the last year, but the Wall Street Journal also hired 8 other people from the last year's class into internships and jobs. Besides those sort of newer programs, we have about 30 to 35 other slots for our students at other companies, legacy media companies like La Stampa in Turin, like Clarín in Buenos Aires, like the BBC in Washington, D.C., The Guardian, the ABC News, Al Jazeera. So we're Environment and Energy, which publishes Climate Wire, Green Wire, Energy Wire in Washington, D.C. So we're constantly doing this, and besides these programs, we've got so many students in multiples at big companies. So out of last year's graduating class, I was just looking at some of the sort of clusters of students. Bloomberg hired 8 of our students out of last year. CNN took 4. The Wall Street Journal, like I said, took 9. The New York Times hired one of our students to be their national healthcare correspondent. One of our students was named editor-in-chief of Washington Jewish Week. 4 people went to Reuters, 6 people went to Fortune magazine. Voice Media Company, which is the publisher of the Village Voice, and they own some other alt weeklies, took 2 people. So these are like the clusters, and then there's just dozens and dozens of other places where people landed. So the numbers, I'd like to just be really blunt about our employment figures, which we've got on our site. But as of graduation day, last year's class was just about 75% employed. And when I say employed, you need to understand the methodology. Every school that if you're tracking employment figures, you'll see that number includes a grab bag of things, because we're dealing with grown-ups. People do a variety of things: internships, jobs, freelance gigs, part-time contracts, longer-term contracts, going back to school. All these things count in our statistics. And also, we are unusual at Columbia University in that we gather our statistics upon graduation day, which, like every other school at Columbia, tracks down their grads like 6 to 8 to 9 to 10 months after graduation, and that's the figure. So as you're looking at other schools' statistics, it's important to find out what their cutoff date is to when they're counting and what the methodology is, and we're very upfront about our methodology. So what you get from us in career services is, if you want it, an oppressive amount of hand-holding. We get to know you extremely well. We sit down with you one-on-one. We help you talk, we talk out, what you want to do. We ask a lot of nosy questions because we're all reporters. And we give you a lot of guidance on your cover letters, on your resumes, on where you might be a good fit, places that you may not have thought about. And we take it from there. The job search is, if you decide to come here, the job search is your own, but you get an incredible amount of guidance from us. And we also we will connect you with alums. I mean, I don't know if, not enough has been said of the alumni network at Columbia. It is an extremely heady group and a very loyal group of alums. And this is, again, you'll get a sense of it if you go on LinkedIn. So last week I had a student in my office who was from Australia, and I connected her with 3 other Aussies that I could think of off the top of my head. And one of them's at Vocative, and one of them's is an editor at a magazine in London. And one is at Al Jazeera at the UN. And they all 3 got a hold of this student, and she's got a Google chat with the one in London set up. She's going to coffee with the guy from Vocative. I mean, it's just a really clubby group. And from our perspective, we also don't see a lot of competition with this amongst the students. It's a very collaborative, close-knit group, and it's a group that you'll be in each other's corner for the rest of your careers, and it's nice. The students have their own Facebook page, and they're constantly talking to each other. And after graduation, that Facebook page becomes not just a place to keep connected, but a place for job tips. We're on these pages all the time, and we see students just constantly sharing tips, job tips with each other, and so it's nice. Our job fair. So you saw the video, but I also want to just make sure you understand it's the biggest job fair in the country. Didn't used to be that way, but it's turned into just a huge event. We hold it at Lerner Hall, which is, I'm a little disoriented. Yes, across this way. It's where you will graduate if you come here, and it's a huge auditorium. We fill it to capacity. We flow into the outer hallways, and it's the biggest space that we have at Columbia, so that's where we have it. But we had about almost 150 companies attend back in the spring. And they came from all over the world. There's a big group of employers that come up from DC. We oftentimes have the BBC usually comes. We oftentimes have the CBC show up. We've had people come from London and India as well. So that 150 companies translates into about 250 recruiters. So if you picture that you're part of a group that is maybe about 300 students, and there's 250 recruiters, it's a really busy day, a really productive day. And we prepare you for it, you train for it, you practice, you research, so that when you go into this event, you are never sitting down with somebody and saying, I just want to sit down and shoot the breeze. You have prepared, you've studied, you know what to do, you know what they're looking for. And that's why at this event, it's just a job bonanza. The other thing we always hear from students is, we hear that you never get a job at a job fair. Well, that's maybe true. At other job fairs, this is not that kind of job fair. Out of last year's class, there were 60 people who got jobs out of the job fair from that day, and that was just like an immediate kind of success. Over the next several months, we will still be hearing from students who have gotten back in touch with the people that they met at the job fair, and who are still 8 months later going in for interviews with people that they met at the job fair. So we're very proud of it, and we work very hard on it, and when it happens, it's pretty awesome. It's become sort of a touchstone event for the students here. So that's all I had. If anybody has questions. Oh, I forgot to talk about international students, because this is important. So when I talked about our statistics, it's just about the same for the international students, but I will be perfectly honest. The international students have to try a lot harder to get a job if they want to stay here. You have to apply to more jobs. than everybody else. You have to be more flexible than everybody else. And in the end is, we have about maybe 73, 74, 75% of the international students will find something. The idea of getting sponsored is a tougher thing. It doesn't happen as often. But lately, we've been hearing a lot about several different kinds of visas that are sort of out there. The O visa seems to be a pretty popular thing right now, but it's for it's for artists. And we've been hearing international students getting this kind of visa if they are photographers and more into sort of videography and photography and have had shows. Then there's the I visa, which we've also been hearing a lot about. That's the freelancer visa, but the limitation on that is that you can only work for a foreign organization. So everybody here, if you're an international student, you automatically get what's called an OPT, optional practical training. It's a 1-year-long green card, basically. It's good for a year. You can do anything you want. And that's mostly what students use. And then at the end of the year, the expectation is that they go back to their home country unless they can find somebody to sponsor them. Okay, questions? Yes.
So I'm just looking at this exclusive internship listing.
Okay.
And I was actually an Italian studies major undergrad, so I'm seeing this La Stampa in Italy.
Yeah.
I assume that's an Italian language reporting job?
You actually don't have to be fluent.
Uh-huh.
You're going to be better at it if you are.
Uh-huh.
But we had an MA student who was a wine and food expert who did that. She had gone to Bologna for her study abroad. Her Italian was a little rustier than she admitted, perhaps, but she went. They loved her, and they let her write a food and wine column in English because they thought, well, wouldn't that be kind of fun for all of our tourists that are here in the wine country? It's up in I forget what the region is. It's got all the famous wine of Italy. Yeah. So that's what she did, and it was really a life-changing experience for her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So is the intention for it to be an English language column? Or
No, they worked with her. They're super flexible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you do end up I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but if you do end up abroad, are you then, and you're writing in Italian or Spanish, are you then disadvantaged at all if you try to come back to New York and get a reporting job in English? Do they?
Well, we've been sending Italian nationals, and also we've only done, it's only a year old, we've sent 2 people who are Americans, and both of them came back and found jobs. I think there's a lot of I think employers value that international experience because it's a good paper and it has a lot of really esteemed editors there. So it's the same with Clarín. We've got a program with Clarín, which is a little different. You have to be absolutely native fluent in Spanish because that is, a world-class, hard breaking news kind of place, the biggest paper in Argentina, the best respected publication in Argentina. And so, but those students, it's very prestigious and it helps you because it's really fast-paced.
And so even though your kind of most recent professional experience is writing in another language, that is still, I wonder if
I don't understand.
Just I wonder if it'd be better to practice in English.
Probably, unless you want to go, and be a reporter in that country. I mean, I don't know if we've had students get hired by the El Nuevo Herald, the Miami Herald, and it's been a fantastic experience. Again, the editors are fantastic. Students do all this breaking news and long form features and everything, and they're not at all worse off. They're really quite, it's a great experience and it's good for your career to do something like that and show that you can do it. The last person, our student who's at BuzzFeed covering immigration did the Miami Herald, El Nuevo Herald internship, and then after that worked for some politics blog.
Great, thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
I was wondering, I want to know what type of jobs graduates get in terms of broadcast. You mentioned CNN, big names, and I was wondering Is it PA jobs? What type of work do they get
Okay,
hired
this is a
for?
little out of my bailiwick because I'm a print person, text person. But they are PA jobs at the bigger networks. You're going to be, an intern at the big networks is going to be, logging tapes and doing some reporting. If you go farther afield, you might have more substantial reporting experience. What I will say is that, when you're coming out of school, you're going to be made to pay dues. If you go to Des Moines, it's weekends, working weekends, or wherever you go. If you want to stay here, it might be change to your desk, cranking out 10 stories a day. It's a trade-off. You're always going to be made to pay dues. So it just depends on what you want out of your career.
Thank you.
Yeah. One's not worse than the other, being chained to desk versus running out. So. Salaries? Oh, rolling in dough. Yes, journalists. No, just kidding. I would say we saw a range of salaries out of last year's class, and we frequently were hearing about starting salaries like in the $40,000 range, sometimes lower, sometimes higher. The upper limit was quite a lot higher, like 3 times that. And for a more experienced person. So it was a pretty big range. The business journalists get paid a little more. People writing about arts and culture get paid a little less. I mean, it's a range. Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, I'm going to talk very quickly about admissions and financial aid, and then we'll take your questions about that. And then all of us who are here will be available to talk with you individually at the end of the program. The application deadlines for the upcoming year, December 15th, for all of the programs except for the dual degree with computer science. That application deadline is January 15th. So for almost all of you, the date you want to keep in mind, December 15th. How do you apply? We have an online application. You go to the website and you look up here in the corner and you see where it says apply. You just go to that button, click on it, and it's going to take you to the application requirements as well as the application portal. And this application portal is the place where you go to file both the admissions application as well as the scholarship application. And I will come back to scholarships in a couple of minutes. Generally, in the applications for both the MS and the MA programs, you are submitting 2 essays, one that is autobiographical, a second which is about your interest in journalism. If you are applying to one of the specializations, whether in the MS program or in the MA program, and in the MA program, you must apply to a specialization. You also write a 3rd essay about your interest in that particular specialization. So whether in the MS program, it's the investigative, data, or documentary specialization, you would do a 3rd essay for that. If it's the MA program, you'll write an essay about the specialization that you're applying to. So whether arts and culture, business and economics reporting, political reporting, or science, health, and technology reporting. You'll submit your resume. You'll submit transcripts from every university that you've attended. You will submit writing samples. So we've already had a lot of discussion about what those might be. They can be articles that you've written that have been published. They can be blogs. They can be things that you've written in class. People who have no journalism experience have also submitted things that they have used in the workplace. We're interested in seeing how you write. And if we can also get an idea of any reporting that you've done that's gone into your writing, that's also very helpful. You also submit 3 letters of reference. Who are good recommenders? First of all, if you have been working in journalism, editors who have supervised your work. If you're still a student or if you're not too far out of college, faculty members with whom you have studied. It can also be, generally we're interested in people who have supervised your work in any way and who can comment on their expectation of your success as a journalism student and then as a journalist. Who do you want to avoid? Your parents. We know your parents love you. You probably don't want your grandparents. If you have worked for a senator, a congressperson, if you have worked for Bill Clinton, only use these people if you reported directly to them, if they supervised your work. It doesn't give quite the same impact if they're just doing it as a favor to somebody who knows you. We will see that already as we read the recommendation. So you want people who know you, people who know your work. One thing that I always recommend, help your recommenders write that good letter of reference for you. Give them your resume. Give them the journalism essay that you've written. If you've been out of contact with them for a little bit, just get back in touch. Tell them why you're applying. You want them to know what your motivation is. And I say this because when we're looking at your applications, regardless of the program, we are looking for a story. And you have the opportunity, when you're putting the application together, to tell your story. You're doing your reporting, you're putting the whole thing together, so the people who you select as recommenders, the essays, how you put them together, all of those are very, very important. I mean, this is really your chance to sell yourself. Do it. You know, don't hide your light under a bushel. Tell us what the great things are that you've been doing. We want to know about it. MS students will also take a writing test, or anybody who applies perhaps both to the MA and the MS program. There is a writing test. It's a 90-minute test that's broken up into 30-minute sections. Again, as Oni suggested, pay attention to what's going on in the news. That is what will help you with that. What are we looking for? The application also gives us opportunities to look at your writing from several different angles. The essays that you write, we assume you've probably shown them to somebody and asked, you know, give me some feedback, and you've gotten feedback. Articles that have been published, we assume that an editor has looked at them, so that you've also had feedback there. The writing test shows us what happens when you sit down at the computer and just throw yourself out there. We're looking for evidence of sentence structure, paragraph structure, how you organize your writing, how you think about what you're putting down on paper, how you look at what you're writing, how you tell your stories. So think about that as you're putting your application together. We do not require the GRE. I'm going to say that a second time. We do not require the GRE for either the 10-month Master of Science or the 9-month MA program. If you take it, you do not need to send it. It is required for the doctoral program. It is required for some of the dual degree programs. So if you're going to apply to any dual degree program, you want to double check the program, what the second program that you're applying to. So for instance, the business school is going to require the GMAT, the law school, the LSAT, the engineering school, which is where the computer science dual degree program is housed, that also requires the GRE. Just double check. If you have any questions at all about requirements, either email us or call us in the admissions office. Any questions right now on the application process, what we're looking for? The question is, do we waive the $100 fee? We do not waive the $100 fee. We do not waive the enrollment deposit. Next question.
The timing of the writing test.
The question is, when do you take the writing test? The application deadline is December 15th. We will get in touch with you in the week between, or the 10 days between December 15th and the Christmas holiday, and we will let you know. We'll hook you up with an alumni proctor in the city where you live, and then you'll arrange a time and a place with the alumni proctor. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm from Venezuela, and the clips that I would have to submit are in Spanish. So would I have to translate them or officially translate them? And also for the letters of reference, would I have to translate them or?
Great question. I'm glad you asked that because there are a lot of people who have the same question. For the articles, yes, you should translate them. You can do the translation. You can have somebody else do it. For the clips, have those translated. For letters of reference, those should also be translated. Yeah, because not everybody on the staff or in the faculty will be able to read those languages. So, right. And if you're submitting video or audio as a part of your application that's in another language, that should also, you should do subtitles, submit a script in English, something like that so that we're able to follow what you're doing.
But the letters of recommendations also have to be translated by...
The letters of reference also have to be translated. I would suggest that you have those done officially. Yes? Should the letters of reference be mailed to the school? The application, the online application system, when you put the name and email address of the recommenders that you've suggested into the application, the online system shoots an email out to them. So you'll want to have let them know before that you're asking them to do a recommendation for you. It will submit an email to them and give them instructions for how to do the online recommendation form. We recognize, however, that there are some people who are not comfortable doing that. And if you have a recommender who comes back to you and says, can I mail it or can I email it to somebody? Yes. You can have them mail it directly to us. You can have them email it to me. You can have them email it to the admissions office. One more question. How do you submit the transcripts? What we ask you to do is upload student copies of your transcripts. What are student copies? Student copies need to be an exact replica of what the registrar's office at your university produces. So the things that you get from the online system that any student can go and get, that is what we do not want, because normally it doesn't give the name of the institution. It may also not even have your name on it. So ask the registrar's office for a student copy of your transcript. You should have those in your own files in any case, and then you'll be able to upload a copy of that with the application. Yes?
How many, are you looking for a certain range of clips? Like, is there a specific number? Or could we submit an online portfolio? Or are we uploading them to the portal?
We ask for 3 different types of clips. You can give us a link if you have, because there are students who have online portfolios and that who also have portfolios that are linked to their resumes. That's also a possibility. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. Is the written test pen and paper or computer? It is computer-based. Yes. What's the ratio of people who get admitted? It's different for every program, and it's also different for specializations within each program. Generally, this year, I'm expecting that it's going to be around a third. For people who are applying to the doctoral program, we take 4 people. That's it.
Are there special requirements for the dual degree programs in Paris or South Africa for special admissions?
Are there special admissions processes for the dual degree programs in Paris and in South Africa? Yes. Those programs you do sequentially. So you would start here at Columbia and finish here. You'll apply to those programs in December, so right before the end of the first semester. And you'll apply directly to those schools through their online websites for admission to start either the following September or for Johannesburg the following January. Other questions? Yes. Can you take graduate classes here at the journalism school before admission? Unfortunately, we do not have people who are auditing classes or taking non-degree courses in the courses that the degree programs students take. However, you are very welcome, if you would like to get a feel for what our courses are like, to get in touch with us in the admissions office. We will be very happy to make arrangements for you to sit in on a class, whether MS class or an MA class. We also have continuing studies classes, and you can get some idea of what those are from the website. You're also very welcome to do those. Yes? It's for the professional interest essays, what should the structure be? We're looking for good writing. So think about the story that you want to tell and tell it in the best way that you can. Yes? The question is, she's been maintaining a photography blog for the last few years that does have content associated with it, and I'm assuming it's content that you write.
Right, it's content that I write, but it's very, I guess it's heavily based on photography, a lot of other
Right. So it's a photography blog. I would say you could use that as one sample, but then you want to make sure that you've got 2 other very strong samples that are writing samples. Other questions about the admissions application? So the question is, she does a lot of editing work not necessarily a whole lot of writing herself. Are there other suggestions for what she can use for writing samples? First of all, writing samples must be your own work and entirely your own work, just as any video or audio samples that you submit with the application must be entirely your own work, not the work of other people. So, you know, you can think about writing some articles. You can think about, I don't know if you might maintain a blog, something like that. But the work needs to be your own. Yes?
What samples have been edited or copy edited and published on a website or a magazine?
What if your writing samples have been copy edited and then published? That's fine, because if it's coming out under your name or your byline, that's fine. And as I mentioned, we assume that any published work that you might submit will have been copy edited. Yes? For people who might have applied more than once or might be applying to the school more than once, how do we view that? And that's a great question, and I know that there are other people who are here in the room and who are with us online who have that same question. One of the things that we look for, in addition to good writing skills, we are looking for qualities in a student that we know make a good journalist. Persistence, determination, curiosity, a love for storytelling, and a passion for journalism. I'll go back to persistence and determination. We regard that as persistence and determination. We regard it as evidence of your clear interest in the school. So people who may have been denied admission are absolutely encouraged to apply again. If you have any questions, if you would like one of the staff members in the admissions office to take a look at your prior application and to give you some idea of where we think the weaknesses are, we will do that for you. Just get in touch with us in the admissions office. Other questions? Sorry? Any other questions? Let me, yes. For international students whose first language is not English, either the TOEFL or the IELTS is required. We require a 114 score on the TOEFL and an 8.0 on the general overall score for the IELTS. Those, we do expect you to have that, yes. Yes. If you are an international student and you've done your undergraduate studies in the United States, and I'll expand that just a little to say also in the UK, in another English-speaking country, Canada, Australia, and if you're an international student whose first language is not English, if you have done your entire bachelor's degree at a university where the language of instruction is English, you do not need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. Yes? For international students who have studied at the American Language Program here at Columbia, and I'll expand that even to say the program down at New York University as well, we would require that you take either the TOEFL or the IELTS. Yes. That includes just the bachelor's degree. And the question was, if you have done your undergraduate, if you've done your studies in a language that's in English, can it be just the bachelor's or just the master's? It must be your undergraduate bachelor's degree program. You have to have completed the entire thing in English for the international students. Yes. Can you say that again, please? When will the admission results be released? March 15th. The dual degree programs are also announced March 15th. Well, I should say that the journalism admission is announced March 15th. Some of the other schools may announce at a different time. So you may hear at a different time from the law school, or if you apply to the business school, that may be different. What if you have applied to a dual degree program? What happens if you're rejected by one school and you get in at another school? Then you need to make a decision about what you're going to do. Because you can certainly go to the school that you've been admitted to. Other admissions questions? Okay, I'm going to talk very quickly then about money. We recognize that Columbia costs a lot of money. I think that you've been hearing a lot today about the value of the program and how important a program such as one of our master's programs can be to your career. Students who come here start their financial planning early. If you're thinking about Columbia, you should already be thinking about how you're going to finance your Columbia education. This is an investment that you're making in yourself, just as buying a house, buying a car. This is a lifelong investment that you're going to make in yourself. Students use a combination of personal funds, J-School scholarship funds, outside or third-party scholarship funds, and for U.S. citizens and permanent residents, federal student loans. What you need to do is start looking, and you'll see if you go to the financial aid section of our website, you'll see that we've got an aid calculator there. You can start plugging numbers in, start thinking about how you're going to do this. We do have generous scholarship programs. I encourage everybody to apply for journalism school scholarships. The range of scholarships can be from $300 to a good $68,000, depending on the program. We have, I think, only 2 scholarships that fully fund students, maybe 3. And 2 are in the business MA program. There is also one for Italian nationals in the politics MA program. Scholarships cover a wide range of things. My biggest pool of funding is for need-based funding, but I also have a lot of funding where the donor has given us instructions about the students that they would like to have supported. So, for example, they might say, I want the money that I have given to go to somebody who is interested in political reporting, science reporting, community newspapers, somebody who lives in Oregon. It could be somebody who's interested in arts and culture reporting, digital media. There are many, many different possibilities. Make sure that you go into the scholarship application, fill it out, and submit it. There are also lots of examples on our scholarship website of scholarships that are given by third-party organizations who want to support people in journalism. You can take a look at that list. It's a great list. For those of you who are international students, check and see what kind of scholarship support or funding that your national governments offer. The US government offers Fulbright scholarships for international students coming to study in the United States. Go to the Education USA offices in your countries, contact them, find out what kind of support is available. You can also, just as an example, there are many South American countries that have federal scholarship funding from individual country governments. The Canadian government does provide some funding and also student loans. The Scandinavian governments provide funding for students studying outside of the Scandinavian countries. Saudi Arabia will provide full funding for students. You need to go to your own governments. The German government also offers funding. Look for the resources that are there. There are good resources available. Take advantage of all of them. There are also scholarships that become available during the time that you're a student here, things like the Overseas Press Association. There are competitions that you'll be able to submit your work to get scholarships that will range from $500 to $10,000 after you have started here. Start thinking about all of this now. As I said, there is funding available. Make your plans. Make your plans because this really is a lifelong investment in yourself. Questions about financial aid? Each program has some different costs, so I'm just going to bring, pardon? I'm just going to bring that up here for you. If you go to the aid website, you'll see here right across the information for each degree, and then you can click on the cost of attendance, and that brings it up for you. So for tuition and fees, medical insurance, the MS program is at $60,000 right now. The MA program is just a little bit less because you're talking about 9 months instead of 10 months. Other questions? Yes? The scholarship application deadline is February 1st. The scholarship application will open on December 1st. Other questions? You're all exhausted. Okay, yes?
Do you learn about scholarship decisions when you're admitted?
When do you learn about the scholarship decisions? Yes, we will let you know at the time of admission whether you've received a scholarship and the amount. For students who are U.S. citizens and permanent residents, we will also notify you of your basic federal loan eligibility as long as you have filed your FAFSA. Also, for students who are applying for journalism school scholarships, you need to submit both the journalism school scholarship application as well as the FAFSA. Other questions? Okay, then I would like to thank all of you for coming. It was great having you with us, and we are available to answer any individual questions that you have. I'm also going to leave my business cards right out here so that anybody who would like them can grab one. Thanks again.